Good morning. It's 8:07 on News Talk 107.9. Welcome. It's Monday. Another work week underway. How many times do you wake up, glance at the news cycle, and say, what is happening? All the time. I know. It's like every day. So Donald Trump, a new offering for creating the golden age of America is to reopen Alcatraz for what he calls the dregs of society, the worst of the worst. Let's send them back to that island prison surrounded by shark-infested waters. And Trump says he wants to reopen Alcatraz, not just reopen it, but expand it and hold a lot of different criminals. I'm totally good with it. I think about it, and there is sort of, I don't have this, but in anticipation of others, there's a reflexive opposition, and it will be ridiculed. It'll be mocked. It'll be opposed. It'll be, lots of lefty pearls getting clutched, and they won't be able to come up with a good reason. Why not? And can I just say, I've had that thought before. Why don't we reopen Alcatraz? Not that I think about Alcatraz nearly as often as I think about the fall of the Roman Empire, but why not reopen Alcatraz? The island is there. The infrastructure's there. The buildings are still there. I think they've been keeping them somewhat maintained because it's a tourist trap. You can go out and take a tour of Alcatraz. But so that's happening. But there's also another bill that we want to talk about. This is a federal bill, House Resolution 867. And House Resolution 867 would have fined you up to $1 million and sent you to prison for 20 years as an American if you participate in a boycott of Israel or its settlements if the boycotts are endorsed by international bodies like the UN or the EU. Now, the person who put this forward was a Republican, pro-Israel, obviously. Mike Lawler is a New York Republican, member of Congress. And I thought, okay, let's sort of de-emotionalize this. Take Israel out of it. Take the UN and the EU out of it. And how you feel about them, because that could go one way or the other. This is the dumbest idea that and certainly from any Republican, it's the dumbest idea that I've seen in a very, very long time. Question, how do you, quote unquote, participate in a boycott? A boycott is a negative act. It is an act of omission. You're simply not buying from someone or something. Now, I could probably think of all the stores and businesses that exist in the world. If you simply define a boycott as you don't buy stuff from them, that's pretty much most businesses. Like there's a lot. So how are you going to police and monitor a boycott? I'm not, because simply the act of not buying from something or someone or some entity is just. So this is a bad idea, and it got a lot of backlash. Anna Paulina Luna is a Florida Republican, and on X she said, this is up for a vote tomorrow, aims to curb anti-Semitism but threatens First Amendment rights. Americans have the right to boycott, and penalizing this risks free speech. I reject and vehemently condemn anti-Semitism, but I cannot violate the First Amendment. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'll be voting no. It is my job to defend Americans' rights to buy or boycott whomever they choose without the government harshly fining them or imprisoning them. But what I don't understand is why we are voting on a bill on behalf of other countries and not the president's executive orders that are for our country. Thomas Massey, I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'll be voting no on the bill as well. Matt Gaetz, if this bill becomes law, how many Israeli products do I need in my home to avoid fines or prison? If I leave an Israeli-made product outside my home, is it the 2025 version of lamb's blood that keeps my family safe? And then Steve Bannon shared Matt Gaetz' take and said, fact check, true. Like, we love even people who love Israel said, this is a terrible, terrible idea. Now, we do understand that Lawler has withdrawn the bill. Like, it's been pulled, but back in January, Lawler said, I'm proud to reintroduce the IGO Anti-Boycott Act, a bipartisan effort to protect U.S. citizens, businesses, and our allies, particularly Israel, from discriminatory boycotts. This bill closes well, wait a minute. What's a discriminatory? Isn't a boycott itself meaning you're making some level of discrimination happening? Like, what does that mean? Discriminating means you're deciding. Anyway, I don't know what that. This bill closes a critical loophole by ensuring that international organizations cannot enable harmful boycott, divestment, and sanctions efforts. This legislation is essential to safeguarding Israel's security and economy from unjust attacks. Now, IPAC, which is a pro-Israel group, they liked the bill, but now apparently Marjorie Taylor Greene said yesterday the legislation's been pulled and the fate is unclear. I look at this and I think, come on. This is can I look, maybe regionalize it or localize it just a little bit? And I'm not going to name names. I'm not even going to name which particular version. But when you had the House Bill 93 in the Idaho legislature under consideration, and it was gaining steam, and the bill had been fairly finalized. I don't remember exactly what phase, but it was ready. You actually had some local Republican county parties whose members were drafting letters that essentially echoed Democrat talking points in opposition to this bill. Now, the problem here is that it's built into the platform that Republicans are for parental choice, and nobody who wants to occupy an official Republican position should be drafting letters opposing bills that support the platform. So it turned into a bit of a brouhaha because the letter got out, it got public, and then there was some damage control that took place. And, of course, we know House Bill 93 went on to pass very robustly, but we found out through that process which quote-unquote Republicans aren't quite the bona fide Republicans they say they are. And they're probably in the wrong party, to be honest with you. I look at this and sadly, I think about this almost as often as I think about the fall of the Roman Empire. But remember that from a few months ago? So my thought is you're not bad people. And I don't want to put that out there that you're bad people. But I do wonder why would you enthusiastically consider yourself a Republican when it's very clear being a Republican means, as a conservative, parents should have school choice. If we're going to have publicly funded schools, then parents should be able to, and it's not even, it's a little more complicated than simply saying the money follows the child, because in this case, money would follow the child, but the money stays in K through 12. So as to make sure that budget stays whole. And so there, by the way, that saga is still going. The bill signed into law. The governor touted the bill, paired it up with the launch program, but you still have the some retired education professionals that are busy out there working hard to try and defeat it. And I think they're probably going to oppose it. They're going to file lawsuits, and it's going to be a big thing. However, you may remember last week, the Supreme Court took up the issue out of Oklahoma that is addressing what I think, and depending on how they rule coming up in, next month, usually June is when we get these rulings, that it speaks to a lot of the same issues about private schools and private religious schools receiving public money. And I think that it could answer some of the key and core questions of what happened with Idaho's House Bill 93. So I look forward to that ruling. I mean, I look forward to it because we get a favorable and positive outcome. But the key here is I think sometimes you have people who are Republican or say they're conservative, but they do things that demonstrate they're not. Now, that's not a sin, and that's not a crime to not be a conservative. So you might hear, well, here's this radio talk show host, this firebrand, and he's talking about Republicans that aren't conservative like it's an epithet. It's not. This is not I don't want anyone to take offense because I'm calling some conservatives some Republicans not conservative. You're just not conservative. That's sometimes I think there are people in our camp who think that's a sin. It's not. The sin comes when you say you are, but you're not. Don't say you are when in reality you're not really dedicated to parents making that primary choice for their kids. Okay, you're somewhat of an institutionalist. You're like, well, we don't want to touch K through 12. That's a sacred cow, and well, the thing is, you're not touching K through 12. You're just offering it's basically quite brilliant, to be honest with you. It's a tax credit. It's a tax credit, like the grocery tax credit, like the fuel tax credit, or, I've done my state taxes before. There's lots of different tax credits that you can claim. And this is one more. The problem that they have, and I think this is the elephant in the room when it comes to House Bill 93, the problem is that it's taking kids out of the system. Even if you leave the money, if the kids aren't there, then they don't have the control over the kid. And I know they're worried that it's going to be even more popular. It'll get used so much that there's going to be a mass exodus, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's the biggest worry. It's not, as Wendy Horman calls it, the end of Western civilization. Everything is going to be okay and just fine. So we have that, and sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there. President Trump was all over the news over the weekend, and I want you to hear this question. This is Kristen Welker, NBC News, and this, you'll probably spot it as quickly as I did, but listen to this question.
Prices are already going up on some popular items, tires, strollers.
This is such a dishonest interview already. Prices are down on groceries. Prices are down for oil. Prices are down for all energy. Prices are down at tremendous numbers for gasoline. And let me tell you, when you have the big thing, what he did, he spent like a stupid person, which he was, but he spent like a very stupid person. And that was bad for inflation. But what really killed us with inflation was the price of energy.
Okay, and Donald Trump is exactly right. If energy prices go up, everything else tends to go up too. The problem that I have with Kristen Welker is that how many different products can you buy? Millions, probably? I bet if I did a complete study and started counting all the things that I could buy in this world, I guarantee you I will find some that are always going up. It's a cherry picking opportunity for the media to say, well, you know what? Here's the thing. Let's find the items that are going up this week, and then we'll elevate those to the news cycle because we want to make Trump. We have to counter the idea that the cost of living is going down, or that generally and I don't know if that's true, but the general prices of things are coming down. Grocery prices, yes, they've leveled off. In some cases, they are coming down. Energy prices, and the point too is you have to. What are you comparing it with? Because I could say energy prices are higher. I think when I got married, it was like $1.39. So yeah, you're right, they are higher. But when you compare it to, in the last couple of years, it's down. So I think the trajectory is down, and there's wide category swaths of the economy where we are seeing the prices moderate. Now, it's not a dramatic drop, but at least we've turned the corner. But it's dishonest and disingenuous for people like Katie Welker, the media class, to come along, cherry pick the items they can find that week that are going up in price, and then to throw that at President Trump, because you could just as equally cherry pick items that are dropping in price and put them forward. But they don't do that because their whole goal is to make him look bad. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating, and here's one more. Listen to this. Listen to Katie Welker, how in the middle of the question she changes the goalposts.
Border crossings are at their lowest level ever recorded. Is the border
Is that good?
Is the border now secure?
Yeah, it's really secure.
It's absolutely
Isn't that good
secure.
that when you say that, doesn't
Okay, notice she changed because Trump answered it without reservation. Yeah, the border's secure. And then she said, is it absolutely secure? Well, is anything absolutely anything? I no. There's no certainty in life. Are you still going to have a couple hundred people, between 100 and 200 people crossing the border? Yes. Why? Because it's a massively big border. So when you say it's a trap, and I'll tell you the trap. The trap is when she changes the goalpost and she says, is it absolutely secure? If Trump says no, then that becomes the next news cycle. Trump says the border's not absolutely secure. But if Trump says, yes, it's absolutely secure, once one illegal crosses, then it turns him, it destabilizes his credibility. He's a liar. So the media thinks they win either way, regardless of how he does. So Trump doesn't play. He doesn't take the bait, and he keeps talking.
that just sound good? After being abused for years by an incompetent president that allowed people to pour through an open border, criminals from all over the world, murderers and insane people from mental institutions and insane asylums. Isn't it a beautiful thing when you say it's the most secure it's ever been in the history of our country? Isn't that a nice statement?
He's like asking the questions back to her, and he's not wrong. Now, I've got to take a break, but there was another clip where Donald Trump said that the Wall Street Journal is a rotten newspaper. Listen.
Well, you people treat us so badly. Wall Street Journal has truly gone to hell. Go ahead. It's a rotten newspaper. You hear me what I said? It's a rotten newspaper.
Obviously, he's on the plane, but he says it's a rotten newspaper. We'll comment on this coming up on this Monday on News Talk 107.9. It's 8:26. It's 8:31 on News Talk 107.9. Neal Larson and Julie Mason on this Monday. And if you'd like to reach us via text or call on the Stones Automotive Group call and text line, that number is 208-542-1079. All right, Julie.
Neal.
You had Trump calling the Wall Street Journal a terrible newspaper. That it's gone to hell, in his words. So,
I think that's a fair assessment.
I kind of like down the tubes as well. Like that's a good phrase for Trump.
I can absolutely appreciate the reckoning that is happening with the mainstream media. You've got NPR and PBS freaking out over the weekend because Trump signed an order, I believe it was Thursday afternoon, saying that the funding was going to be removed from them. They're doubling down, saying they are straight down the middle. They're straight news sources, which is unrealistic.
Absolutely. And everyone knows that's not true.
It's very easy to find the data points on this. So it's become quite easy with AI to scan news sources and see how many times they negatively talk about something and how many times they positively talk about something.
Yeah.
And NPR consistently talks negatively about Republicans and Trump, and so does PBS. Their news stories are much friendlier to criminals. There's just an agenda that's driven behind these two organizations. I love the demise of this. I like to see them fall apart. I have zero problem with Trump calling the Wall Street Journal pathetic.
Here's my thing, and if they fall, they fall. And I don't think that NPR and PBS are national treasures that we need to bend over backwards to save. I think if they're truly of value to the American people, then they'll be okay. Because that's what makes you viable in a society economically is you're valued.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're going to be fine, if what they're arguing is true, then they're going to be fine.
Yes.
But so I don't know if I cheer for their demise. I just don't want taxpayers to be funding it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need it. All the arguments that they had in the first place for sending money to PBS and sending money to NPR, it was because we did not live in an environment of media diversity. Now we have massive media diversity. They don't need it anymore. You have tons and tons of media serving the communities they said they were serving initially.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to be fine without them. There is private sector jobs are on the upswing. We saw the job reports on Friday showed great growth amongst the private sector, a decrease in government-funded organizations because people started taking the early retirement and everything. That totally makes sense. Federal jobs are down. That's fine. That is fine because you create new jobs in the private sector. I really struggle with the concept that NPR, PBS, these mainstream media outlets act like they're the gold standard for everything. Everybody is replaceable. Everyone, including journalists.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure where they got in their mind that they aren't.
Yeah.
Like time was going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not keeping up very quickly.
No, they're not. You know what though? Once you start, and I apologize if this is imagery that offends people, my apologies. But when you start slurping at the teat of the federal government, you don't want to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to wean them off of that.
Yes.
And again, if they're of value, they're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
If they aren't, then they needed to go away a long time ago.
Well, and I would think that other organizations, whether it's Fox or CNN or whoever, is probably looking at them going, go sell ads because that's what we have to do.
Yeah, no kidding. So a question, let me ask you this, hypothetically, because I love Trump's executive orders. I think they're fine. What if politically, to make it more feasible, the executive order was, we're doing a 3-year off-ramp. You get 75% funding this year, 50% funding the next year, 25% the year following, and then after that, you're on your own. Just drop. So they have a little bit of time they can plan and adjust to it.
Well, do you want the brutal, Julie, or do you want?
No,
I mean, that's
for me. I'm with you.
Yeah,
but you need to do what's politically feasible, and I think that the courts now are stopping Trump solely because they think something looks mean. Mm-hmm. That's not a judicial standard, by the way.
There's not a law against that?
It seems mean. So we're stopping you. We're gonna file, or we're gonna impose some kind of injunction on you. Well, again, it's sort of, you know what? There's a perfect corollary here. I floated an idea a week or two ago, and I asked you. I think it was off the air. I said, "Would you be okay if the taxpayer funded the illegals' flights back to their home country?"
Mm-hmm.
And part of me says, no, they're here illegally. Why do we keep spending money on them to just get them compliant with the law? But then I thought, okay, if we don't do something like that, they'll just continue to evade the law in our country, law enforcement. It'll cost more. And sure enough, I saw the headline today. In fact, Fox had an exclusive a few minutes ago that the federal government, I think it's about $1,000, will pay up to $1,000 for illegals to go back home and to self-deport. And I thought that actually, all things considered, makes sense. Not because I like spending even more money, but because I don't want to keep spending more money. Mm-hmm. So you got to spend a little now so you don't have to keep spending in perpetuity.
Yeah, I've got no issue with this concept of self-deportation, and we'll help you get out of here. Because I promise the social programs that are aiding these people are going to cost us more. Not by just a little, by a lot. Mm-hmm. And the strain on the social economy, the social welfare economy in a city will be eased by doing this. So I've got no problem with that. When it comes, I think that they're going to try to stop everything Trump does. And I guess the brutal part of Julie just says they didn't deserve the funding anyways. If you were using the funding appropriately and just providing news, then I would feel bad that we cut it. But you haven't been. And admittedly so, I believe it is the head of NPR who said, yes, we have been, like, admitted to running damaging stories against Trump.
Yes. Yeah.
Then you don't deserve the money.
Yeah.
No matter what a judge says.
Yeah.
You're not providing. There should be some sort of a service they're providing to the nation for that government money. And if it's to harm, and you admit that you were trying to harm, you don't deserve the money. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. And they probably would never make that admission that it was to harm.
They do have, I believe it is NPR. The gentleman who leads NPR is on, he was in an interview and talked about it through COVID, how they purposely tried to harm Trump.
Interesting.
So
use those words?
Yeah. I listened to the clip this morning.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
Yeah. I just feel like
that's not their job. I mean, I would imagine it'd be like, well, we needed to tell the truth and we felt like Trump was harming the country or whatever. But that's a stunning admission that he said we were trying to harm Trump.
Yeah. Here's my deal with all of that is if you are going to present yourself in a genuine light and we as a government still give you money, that's our fault.
Yeah.
But if we're operating under this concept that they're a national news and they're giving us right down the middle and it's clear-cut reporting and it's not agenda-driven and everything, and that's the expectation, and you take the money and it's an agreement between the two, you have failed your contract. So it's time to go.
Yeah, it is. And I think if I'm Trump doesn't think like this and he doesn't communicate like this. But if I'm Trump and I want to be clever, my EO in cutting funding for NPR and PBS is couched under the concept that we are allowing you to be a fully independent journalistic organization. You shouldn't have to have this worry from year to year about your funding. And you should be able to report freely and accurately without being encumbered by that pressure. So we're going to set you loose.
Yeah, that'd be a great way to frame it.
But that's not Trump. Trump's like, they're the enemy and we're cutting the gravy train's coming to an end. Yeah. All right. 8:40 on News Talk 107.9. Quick break. We'll come back after this.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, it's Brad from Now 105.1 and QP99. I'm in the studio here. I love our studios, by the way. Ranger Rick back there. There's Neal and Julie doing their thing. Hey, when you want to advertise on the radio, what do? You call the radio station, right? But what do you do when you want to advertise on Facebook and Instagram and Hulu and Disney Plus and Peacock and the other TV streaming services? You can kind of click around on them and make guesses or read books or take courses online on how to do that advertising. Or you could call us at the radio station. At Sandhill Media, we take care of your local radio and digital marketing. So reach out to us at sandhillmediagroup.com and we'll make sure that your message gets heard and seen wherever your customers are.
It's 8:45 on News Talk 107.9. Julie, this is a very, very, very bad sign. I was reading an AP story about Trump and NPR and
what we were talking about in the previous segment.
I get a pop-up from AP asking for money, asking for donations. They've got their little aluminum tin cup out there rattling a couple of coins saying, can you give me
Can you help us out?
Like they're like a homeless man.
Yeah.
On the streets of downtown, name your city.
They kind of smell like one, too.
So here's what it said. At the Associated Press, we've been bringing the world factual news and information for more than 175 years. Our journalism informs and empowers over half the world's population every day. Now more than ever, we remain committed to covering the news quickly, accurately, and without bias. In nearly 100 countries and in all 50 U.S. states, AP journalists go to great lengths, often overcoming tremendous obstacles, to fulfill our mission. If you believe in the importance of a free and fair press, please consider supporting AP. Your donation advances our mission to provide fact-based, nonpartisan information to the world. Okay, that last sentence is a big, flat-out whopper.
Well, and they're superheroing their journalists. Like,
Yeah.
they overcome so much. Nope, you do a job.
Right.
Just like everybody else does
everyone
a
else.
job.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true. Okay, but just the nature of them needing to donate, like that's not the sign of a vibrant, profitable
Not
media
Not really.
outlet. So part of me is it's kind of sad because, Associated Press is sort of a ubiquitous presence, has been anyway, but I do think that they've become their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And I think the old business models just aren't working anymore.
No. Well, there's just so many other choices. You can't keep offering the single hamburger that has 2 pickle slices and a dollop of ketchup and think that everyone wants it when you have gourmet burgers available all over the place.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. You're not going to be the most popular organization.
No.
You're not keeping up.
No, you're not. And I think we saw this, Julie, in the newspaper industry. And I'm already using past tense as though an industry
doesn't exist.
It's still there, but it is really struggling, and it's really hard to make newspapers profitable for a whole host of reasons, mostly technology. But when I look at this, I think the problem is you had too many people internally that were clinging to the old ways of doing things. And part of the problem is when your medium is called a newspaper, paper has been, the phase out of paper started about 25 years ago, and maybe even before that in some ways. And if you're part of the print media, especially the daily print media, your model, every week it just gets more and more outdated, and that's a tough obstacle for them. That's not an insult. It just is what it is.
I attend a weekly church meeting with youth up at BYU, Idaho. That they're the leaders, and they come to a meeting, and we do that once a week.
Yeah,
there's probably 20 of us in the room. There isn't, especially among the male population, there isn't a single pen and paper out.
Yeah,
but they've all got laptops or iPads. And they're all typing furiously, and 3 people are accessing the document that's on the gigantic TV that we're referencing for our agenda, and they're adding things like announcements and other stuff, and they're adding from different computers. That's what's happening now. Yeah. It is not a sit down in a meeting and you get handed a paper agenda. That doesn't happen very often anymore.
Yeah.
It's just a different world, and they just haven't kept up.
Well, I go back and I have to sort of roll back my memory on this. But newspapers, I remember they were kind of slow to adopt the internet because they felt like, why would we put our stuff up on a website that people could instantly access when our bread and butter comes from people either getting a subscription and having it delivered or going out and grabbing a copy at their local. So they kind of resisted the migration to digital. I think that's probably what ended up being one of their biggest disadvantages. But part of the issue is you're not a newspaper anymore. Paper is a physical, tangible thing. This is very, very different. And I just think it was, understandably, they were very slow to make that migration.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful part, and probably still is for some people.
Yeah.
It's just a dwindling number. It was a beautiful part of their lives. I bet you could go to a college campus and ask how many of them have touched a newspaper in the last 5 years, and I bet a majority of the students have not.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And you're giving them a big span, 5 years.
Yeah, you're right. You are giving them a big. When was the last time you actually took a newspaper and opened it up? Physically, like grabbed it?
You know what? I did it across the street. We stopped at the convenience store, and they carry a local paper there. You can buy it.
Yeah.
And I didn't open it. I flipped it over so I could read the rest of the headline that was at the fold.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's the last time I've touched a newspaper.
And how long ago was that?
Oh, geez, what was that? 3 months ago we went? Maybe
Okay.
4 months ago?
Probably, yeah.
Before that, probably a year before. I mean, it just rarely happens.
Well, and I don't know if they're aggressive about publishing their circulation rates for their actual physical newspaper, but I feel like most people, their customers, I promise you, are probably all over about age 60 to 65.
I still access papers, especially for my podcast online, but I'm not touching a physical paper.
Yeah, it is. And it's just the migration. And it's weird to watch the media. Like, we're talking about this because of the AP story soliciting donations now. And the local TV has had kind of the same struggle. And they're competing with a whole bunch of new offerings now. Like how many different video services do you have?
Streaming services. When I pull open my Roku app, there's probably 24.
Oh yeah,
at least.
Yeah, we have a bunch, and and then you consider the free stuff that like the Tubi TV and Freevee and all. Like you don't. All you need is internet now, and you've got a whole bunch of competitors to your what used to be 3 TV stations. Yeah. Well, 4 if you count PBS, but now it's totally changed. I think they're working hard to try and adapt to it. The one legacy media category that continues to thrive is radio, because we have some advantages. We're on devices, so you can listen to our stream right there, and we're local as well. We're very portable, and spoken word is a lot easier to create than video is. And then we don't have to go out and take pictures, and so we have a unique set of advantages.
You know, it's super interesting because we're not in the newspaper industry, even though they're cousins, right?
Yeah.
Our radio is never subscriber. If you go to the digital version of the Neal Larson Show, it's not subscriber. But if you go to the digital version of a handful of papers throughout the region, you can't get in. And you wonder, is that really a value to you? Like somehow maybe you entice your advertisers to increase your advertising base so you can get rid of your subscription.
Yeah. I know that paywall conundrum is a tough one.
It's a tough one for them to navigate.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back. It's 8:55. All right. It's 8:59 on News Talk 1079. I saw a provocative point being made on the internet the other day. Julie, I'm going to throw it by you at the first of this next hour.
Okay.
It's all coming up. Stick around. Good morning. It's 9:07 on News Talk 1079. And Neal Larson along with Julie Mason. So Mike Pence got a Profile in Courage Award. And I think at that same banquet, they gave Michael Moore a Profiles in Health Award, too. So welcome back. It's good to have you with us on this Monday as we get another work week started. So...
And they gave all the Democrats a proxy award for loving life and supporting children.
Yeah, Rosie O'Donnell got a Profile in Happiness award too. So all right, Julie, I saw this video on social media, and at first I thought, the video's sort of over the top, but then I started thinking about it. And I think it could be, this guy was talking about AI and the impact that AI was going to have on the economy and on jobs. And I've vacillated on this because AI is a developing phenomenon in our society. And he asked the host, and I don't remember who the host was, it doesn't really matter. Would you send your kid to law school now with AI? And they both agreed, no, we wouldn't send our kid to law school because not that we won't need lawyers, but we won't need nearly as many lawyers as we used to have. And because sometimes we think of lawyers like Matlock or, a criminal trial attorney. AI is not going to replace those attorneys. But a lot of the work that attorneys do is just sort of this pretty tedious legal stuff, making sure documents are written correctly and in accordance and compliance with the laws that exist, precedent, and contracts, and And I was telling you about a need that I had for a document to be crafted for something I'm working on. And so I put in a prompt and I asked it, create this script for this need that I have. And it did it in about, just a few seconds. And I thought, if I were to go out and hire an attorney to look this over, to write it, to make sure it's in compliance, it probably would have been a few $100 to do this. And it probably would have taken a week or 2 or 3. I don't know how fast attorneys work in getting this particular need back. But AI did it with a prompt, and I said, make sure it fits legal guidelines, and it produced it. I haven't done this, but I bet if I went to AI and said, draft for me a will with the traditional language, then it would probably do that for me as well. And I might even get more complex and say, ask me as many questions as you need to craft a will for my kids or whatever. And it probably would do it in a pretty good job. And you'd be 90% of the way there, if not 100% of the way there. So the demand for lawyers, it could go down dramatically with an AI future. Now, that could be applied to a lot of other areas as well.
I think so. I think it also opens up the door for additional things because, there will be consulting services. So you use AI to write these, but then you send it off to lawyer Q, and that lawyer reviews it for $100 instead of the $500 an hour you're going to get billed, or $75 or whatever. And maybe they even charge by page or whatever, just to make sure, a lawyer has approved what AI wrote. This looks good, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And you send it back. There will be the ability for those kind of services to open up. It is interesting how AI is going to change things. And I think at first we underestimated what was going to be changed. I think that at first we thought like everybody was under threat. I don't think that's accurate anymore. I think that the more unique you can make yourself, the less likely you are to be replaced by AI.
I think it's super important to identify how AI can make what you do better. Mm-hmm. You need to learn how AI can enhance what you do. Those are the people that are going to hold on to their jobs in the future. All right, 208-542-1079. Let's go to the phones. Hi, caller. How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Good. What's up?
On the subject of AI, I've got a website, and web traffic has been terrible for a long time. I spoke to web developers, and they said, pay us more money and we'll put more SEO content, yada, yada. I plugged it into Grok and asked it, hey, what's wrong with my website? And in 30 seconds, it discovered that it had and I don't even know the term, some sort of JavaScript error where the Google search crawler thought our website was blind, and then gave me a very detailed step-by-step process how to fix it, very deep-level technical stuff, and I had it done in 30 minutes, and that would have cost untold hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for a web programmer to go through inch by inch of the website and figure out. So, yeah, saved me tons of money and fixed it like that.
Yes, and I if I were a web developer, I would be very worried right now. If I were an app, sure. if I programmed apps for a living, I'd be worried. And again, I think we still need those guys, but they're the ones that are going to be guiding the AI rather than. And I think if you're sitting there thinking, no, it's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect me. Yeah, it will. It will affect you. You got to enhance your skills. So that's interesting. That's great. Thank you for the call and for that example.
I think another thing that it kind of pulls the covers off of is sometimes you ask a professional in whatever field, a lawyer, an app developer, a web developer, whatever, to do something for you. And it takes weeks.
Yeah.
You're calling back and you're like, hey, our deadline's looming. Do you have anything like a beta that I can look at something? And they're, we're getting to it. Mm-hmm. And then you realize that if you had employed AI, you could have done most of the job in probably one day.
Yes.
And you're wondering why it takes these professionals weeks to get things done. I think that will be the change, that the ability to make yourself unique is that you operate at a different level than everybody else.
Yeah.
You operate a little bit quicker.
Yeah. I feel torn, Julie, because something that you say from time to time, which I love and agree with, is, support local businesses, because there is Amazon and people can get on Amazon. They typically can find the cheapest or close to the cheapest, but yet that means you're not buying from a local person, which we want you to support local. But when people are operating businesses, they're trying to keep their expenses reasonable and low, and that might force them to purchase certain products from Amazon. It's a conundrum that people are into. I feel like there's a similar dynamic here where if we turn to AI to provide our legal needs or web SEO needs, I had Claude, which is similar to ChatGPT, but it's really good at writing code. I had a concept in my mind for an app that I think could be very, very valuable. I won't go into the details there, but I thought, okay, I'm just going to see what it'll do because Claude has that reputation of writing code. I created what I thought was a pretty good prompt, and it just sat there for several minutes, and it asked me some clarifying questions like, is this how you want this to happen? And do you want it to look like this? Or do you want it to operate like this? So it came back and we had this interactive process. And then it took a few minutes and it was writing the code of everything I wanted. And then it even created a mock-up of what the app would look like on an Android and how it would work. And I thought, if I were to get this same kind of service from a live app programmer or developer, it would take hours and hours. And like the last caller said, it would have cost a lot. Now, I have lots of friends who work in that field. I don't want to see them lose their jobs. At the same time, I want the app developed, and I'm not going to fork over $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 to get the app done. So we're sort of caught in this vortex of priorities, and I don't know what it looks like on the other side, because you're going to have, and I want to make sure, because I think people, in fact, I bet if I looked in the text line, I've probably already gotten a quote unquote correction. I'm not saying all of these people will lose their jobs. And so if you text and you say, oh no, we're still going to need that. You're right, we are. But I think AI is going to carry so much of the burden in the future. We won't need nearly as many of a certain kind of profession that we have right now. And that's why it'll be out of work. Not that the web development industry will go away. It's just that AI will carry so much of that load that companies will say, you know what, with AI, we can accomplish 5 times as much as we used to with only a third of our programmers. And so they downsize and they keep their best and the ones that are good at AI and the ones that have stayed up, and then they downsize that way. That's what I'm saying is going to be disruptive.
And I'm back to my statement that I think if you're unique and you offer something that AI doesn't deliver, that's how you maintain. You know, and it could be a myriad of things. It could be efficiency, that you can work as fast as, I'm willing to pay the extra money because you're going to get it done for me in a couple of days, not 6 months.
Yes.
Or because a lot of people who are developing these things are doing other jobs.
Yeah.
So they don't have time to sit here and massage AI and get it to where it needs to be. So maybe efficiency is your uniqueness, or maybe you provide something that AI can't. You have to be looking at the job that you do and make yourself the standout in that position.
Yeah.
That's how you don't get replaced.
I think one of the best skills you can learn right now, and this could change, so don't hold me to this in a year or 2 or 3. I think one of the best skills you can learn right now is prompt engineering. Know how to ask and direct AI to get the results that you're looking for. If you can do that, that is a very, very marketable skill that I think that the companies are going to want to have.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's fascinating.
we're in a pioneer age. Things are changing quickly. Yeah. Landscapes, people are, if you really think like pioneers, that they were in wagons and moving to new territory and settling new land and building new things.
Yeah.
That's all happening just at hyper speed.
Well, and I also think, and we're still a few years away from this, but when you combine AI with quantum computing, once we get quantum computing up to where it needs to be, where it's usable on a consumer level, people are saying that is godlike power at that point.
Yeah.
So
there's some fear in all of this. There's a little bit of nervousness.
It's definitely a brave new world. But is there a sense? I think everybody in their own industry wants to think, "Oh, AI will never replace me because I'm me. AI will never be a radio talk show host because I'm me." And I think that for some categories that's true, but people need to take a very, very courageous look in their career mirror and make sure that you're not replaceable by AI, because it very well could. And I think we are going to have to figure out really innovative things to do to help people who get displaced by AI, because it's coming, and it's coming pretty quickly.
I think we went through a time frame, too, where it was desirable to always have a desk job. I've reached a higher level if I'm doing a desk job. And we've raised an entire generation now on cell phones and video gaming devices from the time they were babies. And so they've always known that, right? That's why the trades are clamoring for people. And there is massive opportunity in the trades that AI just can't replace. And if you are a trade worker who combines AI with what you do, learning different ways to do things, man, you're unstoppable right now.
It's interesting because I agree with you. I don't think AI is going to replace the trades anytime soon. However, I am seeing these videos of homes that are being built. They're basically massively big 3D printers, and the ink is actually concrete. And it's going through and it's printing you a building. And I'm like, okay, that's going to bring housing costs down dramatically. And then when they figure out how to implement the plumbing and the electrical and all of that, it will. Everything is about to change, I would say, in the next 15 to 20 years in terms of how we live our lives. So.
Yeah, but if you know how to do it, let's say you're a trade worker and you know how to do it, as that technology comes aboard, you can, just like we're talking today, learn it so that you can make your company or yourself unique.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't disagree with that. But let's say right now you have 100,000 plumbers across the country. As this technology develops, you may have only a need for 10,000 plumbers that know how to incorporate AI, because the efficiencies and the scale will mean that one plumber can now do the work of 10 plumbers. And that's what I'm talking about. Is you're right, that's good advice for the individual, but when you look at the macro economy, what this means is that some of those people are going to get squeezed out.
And that this sounds really unfeeling and without emotion.
Yeah.
But that's reality.
It is. It's how it works.
I just, this concept that and we have infused it through college courses and everything, that if you train yourself, you'll always have a job.
Yeah.
No, it's just not how it exists anymore. There's 40-year-olds who trained themselves 25 years ago who are retraining themselves in new things so that they stay relevant.
Yeah.
You are never guaranteed a job.
Yeah. No, you're not. You're not. Have you seen the tunnel machines that they use to bore tunnels?
Mm-hmm.
And it collects all the dirt, and then the dirt goes out the back, and that's like, and I'm bringing that up for a reason. I'm not changing the subject here. The point is, if you go back in time and you think, well, the way they used to build tunnels is, I don't know how they used to build tunnels, but I know it wasn't that. And I know you can build bigger tunnels faster now with that technology than you could before. that's going to hit so many industries. And you're right, Julie. We're going to have to find new things to do and to pay people for. I think it's going to blow up the preconceived notion of a 40-hour work week, Monday through Friday, for a lot of industries, or even a longer work week, Monday through Saturday. I think that society, by necessity, is going to have to relinquish their attachment to the way things have always been done.
Mm-hmm. What is it? Change always happens.
Yeah.
If you think that you can live in a world without change, then you're going to live in a world that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Change is always going to be occurring.
Yeah. One thing, too, this is more of a psychological observation and me listening to too many podcasts, but I feel like we've never had more tools at our disposal, more opportunities ahead of us, and we are as unhappy as we've ever been. Mm-hmm. How does that work?
Well, I think there's multiple facets to that, but we just used a whole entire segment talking about how we're depersonalizing everything you do.
Yeah.
That you're not working with people, that you're not working with personalities that you vibe and mesh with or whatever. It's you and an AI tool. That's a lonely world.
Yeah, it is a lonely world. And it is a disconnect. I think social media has something to do with it. Mm-hmm. I think societal priorities have something to do with it. All right, 9:26 on News Talk 107.9. We'll take a quick break and be back after this. Okay. Yeah, that's true. AI design, web designers are probably using AI too. I'll ask Ethan about this. My brother's a programmer that has his own business in his home and is struggling because of AI. What you reading?
I was reading that one about the coding, the really long one, the ups and the downs. Oh, okay. So Jackie on Facebook, I was going to say this, but we moved on past the attorneys. I do know there is a local attorney. I don't know if it's he or she or name. I just know of a local attorney that got in big trouble with a judge because they used AI to put together the case, and it was citing false things.
Oh, yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. So what Jackie on Facebook says her husband has already had attorneys called out by judges for using AI, and it has given them citations that don't exist.
Oh, well, true. And I don't disagree with that. That's obviously a problem. It can't happen. But are these just the early kinks that have to be worked out?
I don't know.
AI?
That's a great question, because I don't know if you can ever work it all out. Because how do you stop a system from going rogue? Humans go rogue.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think about, we use computers for all sorts of things, and they work pretty well. Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of efficiency compared to what we used to do. So I don't know the answer to that question.
I think no matter what, it has to be a combined effort between.
Yes.
Especially if
you still need human eyes on it. Yeah.
Yes, especially if it's going before a judge in a courtroom case or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be wise for a criminal defense attorney to utilize AI to gather potential strateges and court cases they can cite, but you can't leave it at that. No. You got to research all of that once you grab it.
Yeah.
As I was reading that big long one about the pros and cons to learning to code, it's so interesting that was a catchphrase of the Democrats when they cut all of the energy jobs, learn to code.
Yeah, right.
And now those jobs are being threatened. You know, how unaware the Democrats are of how actual business functions.
Yeah, it's true.
That you couldn't have guessed that enough.
Someone in this, I want to ask a question to you that I think was sort of hypothetical. Do you really want your banking app or airplane software built only by AI if it works?
Well, my response back to that is there's been plenty of apps that have been built by humans, and they're getting ransomwared all of the time.
Yes. I would almost...
You're perceiving that they're good now.
Yeah.
They have flaws now.
Yes. Okay, let me we'll have this conversation. 9:30 on News Talk 107.9. Neil Larson along with Julie Mason. So, Julie, we got what I think is a pretty good text from listeners. From Code with Chris, arguments why you might not want to learn to code. AI tools are getting really good. You can now build apps just by telling AI what to do. Entry-level coding jobs are shrinking. Companies are starting to use AI instead of hiring junior developers, and the pressure is rising on current developers. They're being told to use AI even when it doesn't work well yet. The arguments why learning to code is still worth it, because coding is more than just typing. You learn how to build safe, fast, and reliable software, not just make something work. You don't know what you don't know. Learning to code teaches you things like databases, networking, and problem solving. Number 3, it helps you use AI better. Knowing how code works makes vibe coding way easier and less frustrating. What is vibe coding? Never heard of that before. And then 4th, we still need real engineers. Do you really want your banking app or airplane software built only by AI? That question jumped out at me because my answer to that is, if it works, I'm fine with it. And I think human-coded software is also subject to the same vulnerabilities that AI-coded software is. So, I mean, you mentioned it off here, ransomware. I mean, we still have problems with human-coded AI. So if you had a pristine, fail-safe way of coding versus a flawed way, then the argument is settled. But we have 2 flawed ways. Mm-hmm. So that it doesn't really settle it with that question.
Yeah, I mean, that's my response to that one. I think Chris lays out some great arguments here. And I think for me, what Chris is arguing for is use AI, but make sure you know it. Make sure you know what you're doing. He says there's good reasons to learn to code because then you understand the software better and everything. That's right. You're making the argument.
Yep.
A current coder should be able to effectively use AI to make them the more valuable coder than the person who refuses to use AI.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Do you remember back, Julie, how old were you when you had the first home computer in your house?
Oh, we didn't have a computer when I was a kid.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No.
Gotcha.
No. I mean, we had gaming systems, but not a full-blown computer in our house.
Like a PC. You didn't
yes, yeah. But I probably first year of marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My dad was an engineer, and he loved math. His mind was just geared that way. So I remember as soon as Commodore 64s became available, we had one in our house, and I absolutely loved it. It was a lot of fun because I learned to do some programming on it and used it to write papers. I just used it a lot. But I remember sort of this fear that people had that when the computer came, you could do so much with it, and it was so productive that you were going to replace people and they'd lose their jobs. Indeed, that happened. But the economy changed enough where you freed up human capital and people got trained to do other things. But look at, a lot of people initially thought that the computer was a zero-sum factor in the economy. That if a computer came along, let's say one computer can do the conceptual work of 10 people, thinking, processing, calculating, whatever. Well, it's true. So your staff of 10 went down to, say, a staff of 1 because you still need somebody to run the place. Those other 9 people went somewhere, but they also had access to the value that a computer brought. So they all had computers, and they found ways to use those computers to be valuable. Now computers are everywhere. They're in every home. They're in every business. They're everywhere. So there was actually a multiplier effect. I feel like there's a corollary here that AI will get really good at some things that we'll all kind of stop doing, or many of us will stop doing, but we'll be able to take AI and redirect it so that it will benefit us professionally. In the same way, people who got replaced by a computer ended up getting one, and it made them more productive, so they had opportunity.
Yeah, I think you just enter this new arena, this new frontier, to borrow from May 4th. You're in a new version of reality. Be open-minded and learn.
Yeah.
I think those who will be left behind are the close-minded.
Yeah, agreed. All right, 9:35. Let's break, and we can shift gears when we come back. 208-542-1079. Okay. Pritzker. Does he think he's the Trump killer?
I think he thinks he's there, which is really sad for the Democrats.
Well, yeah. It is really sad.
Oh, is that Beto? Yep.
Yep.
Oh, he probably thinks he can make a resurgence as well.
I can't look at... The only thing I hear when I look at Beto is, hell yes, we're going to take your guns. That's all I ever hear. That was the...
The visual I always see is him standing on a chair and making sure his staff took a picture from clear down here. Like, get on the floor and shoot the picture.
Yeah.
Because somehow that made him feel big. I don't know. I don't know what that desire was there.
Is David Hogg out yet? I know they were trying to...
I don't think so, not yet.
Oust him. Beto's...
You want to know one of the things that's weighing heavily on my brain?
What?
Think about where you get your news from, whether it be local, wherever. Mm-hmm. How many stories do you see come across your news feed about 43-year-old man charged with child porn, blah, 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 federal charges? There was one over the weekend. A teacher was caught kissing a kindergartner. Mm-hmm. Like, the amount of education child issues that involve sexual material is terrifying. What is going on? We are so degraded in this country.
Yeah.
It is so common. And maybe it's just easier to get caught now because everything's digital and there's cameras in classrooms and there's cell phone apps and people find that. And so maybe it's not as big of an increase as possible, but it is disturbing.
Who does that? That is weird.
Because what brought it to my mind is I just refreshed East Idaho News, and their lead story is Bonneville and Bannock County men sentenced in child porn cases. Like, how many times do we see that headline?
Yeah.
Sometimes multiple times a day.
That's a good question. Has this just always been going on, but we have the tools to catch it now? Or is the flood of porn across the nation, well, across the world, is it creating more child?
Crime.
Yeah. People
Probably
having
both.
access to it. It's probably
both.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It is sad.
What else did you do over the weekend?
Mowed
your lawn.
Mowed the lawn and washed the windows because it had been a minute. Worked on perfecting the website. Well, improving the website. What else?
Did you have any good food?
Grilled hamburgers yesterday.
Good.
That was good. Even had mushrooms and onions in butter and put those on top of the patty and then the cheese on top of that. So the cheese was melted off. That was really good.
Good.
Did you do sourdough?
No, I fed my sourdough starter, but I didn't make it. I made banana bread.
How was it?
Good.
Good.
It's pretty hard to screw up. If you have a good banana bread recipe, which I think mine is really stellar.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to mess it up.
I did see a recipe that I think it was Friday night. You take hoagies, you hollow it out like a canoe, you put down some spaghetti sauce, and then you put down some pepperoni, and then you put down some string cheese, and then you put your meatballs on that, and then more spaghetti sauce, and then mozzarella on top of that. And then you bake it in the oven. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's what we had. It's really good.
Good.
Anyway, Julia was asking me what I ate over the weekend, and I wasn't quite telling her when it was, or I was about halfway done when she said that. So welcome back, 208-542-1079. That's the number if you'd like to join us, 208-542-1079. And so, Julie, we have Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And he was all over. He did a sit-down with MSNBC, which have we ever had a president that does this much interviewing with the media?
There is a ripple effect to this. The answer is no. We've never had this much transparency, ever.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to get very used to it. And if he keeps doing this, both parties, because Trump will go away, both parties need to learn from this.
Yeah.
That you can't hide and just stay with your good old boys or good old girls club or your caucus. Yeah. There is an expectation that you be more transparent. I actually hope that this filters down to Idaho. I hope that there are lawmakers that realize they can't run and hide.
Yeah.
And we do have lawmakers who hide. They win their election, and then you really don't hear much from them. They don't do a whole lot of really high-profile things in Idaho. And they never really ruffle feathers either. They just kind of stay neutral all the way along. We don't need lawmakers like that. We need to know that you're there to put in the grit, put in the hard work, do the things that you sometimes have to answer tough questions for. And then I would hope Idahoans realize which lawmakers they should give respect to.
Yeah, I would agree. In my mind, that's just part of your job. Now, I don't expect lawmakers to give as many interviews as Trump does. I think he's very, very comfortable. But I do think availability is a very important thing as a lawmaker. And there are a handful that they won't interview with us, even though I feel like we're respectful. We will ask hard questions, and especially on particular issues. But they won't reply to. Sometimes they reply, but they always decline. So
look, things have changed a lot about Idaho politics in the 8 years that I have worked with you.
Yeah.
That first year, I was quick to learn during the legislative session. I came on board in September. First legislative session was that January. I was quick to learn that there was one news source only coming out of the Capitol that was run by Betsy Russell, and that was about it. We were taking whatever she said as gospel about what was happening in Idaho politics.
Yeah.
This last legislative session, so eight sessions later, you have multiple people who spend their time at the Capitol. And they're putting live updates on X, and they're sharing it on their Discord channels, and they've got podcasts. They're putting it out there. There is no longer the ability for lawmakers to go over there and just have it kind of be a quiet session.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is healthy for politics.
Well, there's no gatekeeper anymore. There, like you said, there's so many X accounts now, and I do love that the Idaho legislature has video archives. They always have, well, they have for quite a few years, but now you have the social media infrastructure to go in and parse through all of that footage, so you can grab the peeing and pooping and periods moments.
Yep.
And make those available. So
yeah.
No offense, Rod, by the way, if you're listening.
But that's what I mean about. I think that both Republicans and Democrats need to follow the lead of Trump. And I don't mean that every presidential candidate should be as open and transparent as Trump is. But you've got to have a level of it, because people are going to get used to it. Hey, I don't know how Democrats, if you put all of your emotions away about Trump, put them all away, how you're not just outright angry that your president didn't hold a cabinet meeting for a year.
Yeah.
You should be so angry that administration was run that way. That has nothing to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with his cognitive ability. It's all leadership.
Yeah.
And that's horrific leadership.
Well, that's not a specific to Biden problem. That's just a process problem. You can't run the nation and not have a cabinet meeting for that long.
Yes. And then when you do have a cabinet meeting, you have your wife run it?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is I hope that people understand there's a level of expectation that has been set now. You don't have to have as many cabinet meetings as Trump has had. He's had an insane amount since those people have been placed into their positions. But there is a level of transparency that I hope people learn to expect and demand from their politicians.
Yeah. So let's get to a couple of these clips where he was asked about once he's gone and who takes over MAGA.
You have built a political movement that has transformed the Republican Party. It's transformed the country, quite frankly.
Political movement in history, MAGA. Make America great again.
When you look to the future, Mr. President, do you think the MAGA movement can survive without you as its leader?
Yes, I do.
What gives you?
I think it's so strong, and I think we have tremendous people. I think we have a tremendous group of people. We talked about a number of them. You look at Marco, you look at J.D. Vance, who's fantastic. You look at, I could name 10, 15, 20 people right now just sitting here. No, I think we have a tremendous party. And you know what I can't name? I can't name one Democrat. I mean, I look at the Democrats, they're in total disarray.
So, Julie, we did a flash poll last week, and we had our listeners make a choice, and the two names we offered were J.D. Vance and Ron DeSantis. But we had a lot of Marco filtering in, too, from our listeners. I feel like Trump, and one of the points that we arrived at was that Trump is going to be the kingmaker. It will very likely be whoever Trump wants it to be in the end. Because once he gets behind one of the candidates in 2028, a lot of people are going to be like, okay, I'll give Trump who he wants because we want MAGA to continue. Notice Trump doesn't mention DeSantis. Mm-hmm. He mentioned J.D. Vance, but he said, I'm not going to endorse at this point. That would be crazy to do that. But then he mentioned Marco. Well, Ron DeSantis belongs in that club somewhere, at least on some surface level. Is there a reason why Trump is directing the conversations and the attention away from DeSantis? What's going on there?
I don't know. I have actually wondered this as well. I'm wondering if he thinks DeSantis can't win. If he's looking at the winning probability and he believes J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio have a better chance of maintaining.
You know what? I think so. And don't get me wrong. I really like Ron DeSantis. He's not a warm and engaging guy. Mm-mm. Like, he's very kind of serious. You can tell he's been in the military. I mean, so has J.D. Vance. But there's a stiffness about Ron DeSantis that I don't think you really get with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Maybe a little bit with Marco, but sometimes he's awkward. I know during the debates he kind of did that smile thing where you could tell he was angry, but he was smiling to try and mask it. And it was just sort of a howdy-doody, sort of projection. And so maybe you look at Ron DeSantis, on paper, he's absolutely ready to be the president of the United States. But as a retail politician, barnstorming the country, maybe he isn't the best bet.
I think if you were to line up DeSantis and J.D. Vance side by side today, May 5th, 2025, I think that you can already mark more missteps for DeSantis than for J.D. Vance. And especially over the last 7 to 8 months, J.D. Vance has been far more visible, so far more opportunity to make those mistakes, and he hasn't. Yeah. And so maybe that's where the winnability ratio comes in, that J.D. Vance had some moments, a handful on the national stage, and a couple of them didn't go so well. Yeah. And J.D. Vance has had far more than a handful, a bucket full. Yeah. And almost all of them have gone well. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. He's done well. I think and as vice president, he's just going to have more visibility too. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's interesting to watch. Part of me during this interview, I don't have the audio of this, but Trump said he's not running for a third term, which I'm a little disappointed. Not that he's not running for a third term, but it was kind of fun to watch the left get completely triggered and trolled by Trump in him leaving it vague. Yeah. And leaving it at, who knows, I might do that. But so maybe he was starting to get blowback from some Republicans, like in the polling, that they're like, no, you can't be a dictator in the making. So you can't be joking about this. But in his comments, he had a nod to the Constitution. He said, I don't think there's a way that I can do it constitutionally. So, which is that's the right thing to say. Yeah. And it also fulfills his ego, which is, I know I could win another one, but I don't think I should probably even try to do this because it's probably not good for the country constitutionally. Yeah, probably. So, all right, quick break, 9:52 on News Talk 107.9. We'll be back. We'll have our final segment coming up. Okay. Let's do the other town and country when we get back. Okay. Actually, no, let's do Grand Peaks. So as I was driving home from Rexburg yesterday, it was probably right about 6 o'clock, maybe 5 to 6, 10 to 6, right in that range. Yeah. Like monsoon level rain for about 3 minutes. Did that happen here? We had a little spit of rain, yeah. I don't know if it was monsoon level, but it It was crazy.
Got the roads wet. So.
Like windshield wipers full blast. It very short.
Yeah.
But yeah, dumped for just brief little moment. Mm-hmm.
There's probably a name for that. Michael, what is it? Maybe not.
When I was talking to my daughter in Arizona last night, she said they had a flash flood because they had some sort of a rain dump and the water can't go anywhere in Arizona. So,
yeah, I have a cousin in Moab who I remember she posted a video a couple of years ago. There was a flash flood, but it was like in the mountains miles away. But all of it goes to this one stream bed, and it moved through like it was pretty impressive.
I've never been in Arizona for one. I was with my friends in Vegas probably 15 years ago, maybe 18 years ago. And we were driving and they started shutting down streets because they were full of water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a flash flood.
My daughter went to Vegas a couple weeks ago. She's like, that place is filthy. It is so dirty. These
kinds of videos are all over the place. And this one was arguably one of the more propagandistic ones. But they said ever since they had a construction project and it dug up an ancient grave, probably a Native American grave, that everyone has said that Vegas is like evil. People don't go, like the tourism is way down in Vegas. It has a very negative feeling to it. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't been to Vegas in 2 years. Ryan and I went right after his mission, and we did a quick road trip. But now I've always felt demons were crawling the streets of Vegas, but they said it's weird. It's like got a very dark feel to it now.
Mm-hmm. My daughter was there at a specific hotel because her sister-in-law, which is much younger than her, was playing in a volleyball tournament, but hers was just trash and filth everywhere. The streets are dirty. The hotels are dirty. Like, it's just dirty.
I wonder why. Because they've usually been pretty good about keeping things clean. It's 9:57 on News Talk 1079. Grilled burgers yesterday, Julie.
Yum.
Yeah, it was really good. The cheese, the mushrooms, the onions, all of it. But the beef is so good. That's why Grand Peaks Prime Meats is so important to... if you're getting steak or if you're getting ribs, if you're getting ground beef or hamburger patties, that's the place to do it. The prices are competitive, but the quality of their meat is very good.
Yeah, gpprimemeats.com. That's where you want to go to learn about all the different cuts of meat that they have. They have packages there. It gives you a good idea of cost ranges. And what you're going to find out is that it's very comparable to your big box stores. So why not go for quality? You're not, if you're looking to save a ton of money, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So go get quality meat at GP Prime Meats.
And they can deliver it to you for orders $75 or more. They deliver for free in the Idaho Falls area. And if it's more than that, it's a small fee, I believe $10. So gpprimemeats.com, that's the place to go. All right, Julie, last minute. I'm going to throw this at you. There is a story out right now that the White House says it has no timeline for releasing the Epstein files.
Well, I don't think my opinion's changed on this at all. I think you and I probably share the same opinion that there are too many people that will be implicated on both sides of the aisle, and it's going to cause such a national disruption that I don't think they can release it.
Okay.
Can you imagine the massive distrust?
Oh, absolutely. Now, you know what? This is where James O'Keefe needs to come in. Project Veritas needs to figure out how to do that.
Is he still missing?
Did he go missing?
Well, he went off the market.
I don't know. Yeah. We'll have to check. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow. It's 9:59.